not really an albino. The one that's not melanin deficient is not really an albino. I call it a moon child. Now, the moon child is very powerful. Now, these are your Irish and your Scottish peoples. They are not black and they are not white. And this is why they refer to as Europe's redhead stepchild. They came down through the DNA chain under the order of the Most High to assist Solomon in the cleanup. And this is how they end up chasing. They've been looking for her the redhead princesses who they've been looking for, because they knew that the redhead princess was going to give birth to the one that would come and clean this shit up at the end and tell everybody what it was all about. So Alexander rising up as also he was a half son of Enlil. It's why he was so influential and charismatic, and why he was homosexual, because Enlil cannot stand the creator gods. He became a homosexual in order to smite them and spite them. He created homosexuality. And the reason why nobody at the end of the age can be condemned for it, when what they call the relaxing of creation, is because when he created it, he had to get it cleared through higher channels as a way to bullshit basically the women. That's what it boiled down to. But his justification was so that men can receive affection in the times of war away from women. That was the justification that he gave. In the free will universe, it was told to him that as long as the men freely violated the gender contract, they wouldn't be punished. But if they went to a realm where the gender contract was the order, then the only way that they would be allowed to participate freely in homosexual activity would be when the relaxing of creation at that time. That's why your biblical prophecies say that it will be as the time of Sodom. But Sodom didn't have nothing to do with homosexuality. Your modern day churches gave it that connotation. Sodom was just straight up every type of corruption you could think of. It was just pure corruption. It didn't have nothing to do with your sexuality, because that wasn't the closing of the age. And so the edict would have to be given because the contract is up for discussion. And the transition from, it was up for discussion between the era of Aries and Pisces. It was shot down. Homosexuality was shot down when it was up for discussion at that time. I gave a whole thing on the gender contract. But when it was shot down, then it had to be written in law. What do I mean by that? It had to be told to the people or written down so that the people couldn't forget. Now, you have two types of people now. Because of the Cadmon, the memory cannot facilitate what they call divine wisdom, which never forgets. It's got more memory data space than every computer that you could think of, including your AI. It never forgets. But if the brain, or what you would call your RAM, your short-term memory, can't process well enough, you can't facilitate that higher wisdom. It'll cause a breakdown. You'll end up Stephen Hawkins. Now, if you go look at Stephen Hawkins is the poster child for not being able to ascend, being looped back into the reincarnation cycle. They cheated him. They cheated him out of an opportunity to be able to ascend now. This is why he professed to be atheist. Because he knew that as long as they kept him alive with the machines and he didn't get into a new suit before he did, that he wouldn't be able to ascend, because he couldn't match his solar fire or his divine masculine and then his divine feminine. So that is the exact disease that he had that stopped them from ascending, that Francis Welsen is debating the eugenicists about. It's the exact same disease. You can look it up, and I will go deep into that. But right now, you have to understand that there was a series of birth defects, but that was the one that stopped the ascent. That stopped everybody from being able to ascend. And so when she said no people can be thrown away like trash, and that everybody had to have a right to have a family, every female had to learn how to be a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a wife. She said when have women that can give love and receive love that does not know the responsibilities of being a mother, a sister, a daughter, and a wife, then you have deprived creation of one of its most beautiful creations, the mother. Because the female learning all of those roles become what you call a matriarch. And she learned how to balance a family first, because a balanced family creates a balanced society. And this is your crucifixion. It's the ripping apart of the family. It's the hands nailed that can't build their own. It's the thorns on the head so you can't think. It's the feet being nailed so you can't freely walk and roam without a passport. It's the spear being jabbed in the side so that the urine in the blood can contaminate the blood. The story's right there. It's a fiction, but there's a crux to it. There's a central point of this fiction. It's telling you the story. And so they cast the lots of the fabric of this man on the auction block. They ripped his royal garment. This is his royal family. Because you got to remember that the royal garment, what do they call your nuclear family? The fabric of the family, your family fabric. Why is they calling it that? Those are your clues. They have to give you the opportunity to discover it. Okay, so now you got your family structure being ripped apart, being sold on the auction block. Why are we doing this? What is this all about? Because they told you was in slavery, but you was never in slavery. These were POWs. So you don't even know your own history. You don't know the history of this country. So I'm going to go over a real fast history lesson starting from Alexander. And as you go and you start putting all of the pieces where I'm telling you they go, and you step back and look at the story, you're going to say, holy shit. So here it is. Enlil rose Alexander up, sent him into the Indus Valley for the information on how to keep the caste system in order. And as a result, he came out of there with a divide and conquer doctrine of caste using skin. All right? He used skin and tone, complexion as the standard. But it won't work right now. In Greece, this will never fly because of Helen. You got to remember this. In Greece, the divide and conquer method of white supremacy won't fly because of Helen. Now, who is Helen? Go back to Lilith and you'll know who Helen was. Now, notice that the Greeks had this high culture, but then Rome rise to power and the culture has not risen beyond the great glory of Greece. But don't nobody ask the question why. Now, watch this. When you leave Greece in a high culture and Rome takes power, right? When Rome takes power, Helen becomes a man. This is when they sever the head of Medusa. Basically, Medu, 10, Sa, a priesthood. Any of the Egyptian priests will tell you what I'm talking about. It's the 10th order of the Sa priesthood, Medusa. And so when they do this, they switch into a man. This is the beheading of Medusa. This is the changing of the priesthood, the changing of the guard at that time, the changing of the priesthood. Now you got to remember that Helen started off as a female god in Greece, high culture. They ballet, opera, dance, high culture. Rome, no culture, war, blood, a male Helen. And this is not hard to look up. It's all in our face. It's right there. Okay, now, Helen takes over. Now, the Egyptian priests wrote the Greek language. So what did the ruler guy got to do? He got to parallel this with some intellectual languages. He got to try to come up with something to parallel Greek. So he went to a relative in a different priesthood that was rooted in Carthage. And he told him that he needed a scholarly language for the Romans to speak because he wanted to get them away from the Greek. Now, when they came up with the language, they called it Latin. But the Latin language settled what we know as Spain, the area of Spain coming all the way down into Italy. So now we have what you call your Romance language. Your Romance languages stem from Latin. So you got your French, your Dutch, your Spanish, Italian, those kind of language that came, they call them the Romance languages. Now, look, Rome is said to have been founded by Romulus and Remus, who were two twins suckled by the wolf. Now, the she-wolf. They made specific that they always, now it's obvious if they're being suckled by a wolf that it wouldn't be a male. But they always make it clear they were suckled by the she-wolf, right? This she-wolf is called She-Ra. Now, you'll see her in the word siren. It's She-Ra. The howl of the wolf, the siren, She-Ra. It's the same word, but it's slightly changed for the cultural difference. So this wolf, this she-wolf, was a very specific wolf. And she chose very specific set of twins. Well, what's the story of Romulus and Remus? We gotta know how Rome came to power in order to understand why we accept this punishment, or how we even get into the punishment. We had already accepted it to clean up the genetic mess, which is the story that Solomon gave of commissioning his demons to build the temple of man, where those who couldn't ascend would be able to have the right of ascension. So this is Solomon's temple that we're talking about rebuilding. Only Hiram know that, because he know the dimensions. Now, when Romulus and Remus become grown, one of them is taken from the wolf and given an education, and the other one is sent off to war. This is significant because now it's showing you you're going to have two fields, warriors and scholars in Rome. But there's no art, which comes from Greece. Now, because there's no art, it removes the feminine nature, the feminine aspects out of the equation. The art is the expression of the soul relayed into reality. That was done on purpose to slow down how much artistic ability is expressed, to allow the rage. And basically it's like a dude hitting puberty. When you pull back the estrogen and you turn up the testosterone, you get pure rage. This is what's taking place as these two, the war and scholastics, and step on the art. Just keep the artist down, because when you start expressing your soul's expression, you can watch this with any artist. And this is why they don't like artists coming in elders, like 30, 40, 50 years old. They won't have a very long career coming in at an older age. No matter how good they are at whatever they do, they don't want older artists, because when your soul burn off the foolishness of the youth, your sako ma, your monkey mind, when your mind burn the foolishness of the youth off, and you facilitate that higher wisdom, and you can infuse that with that love chemistry, at that very point, you can no longer be oppressed. You can't be oppressed because you can see too clearly, and this is the problem with the artists. That's why you see them stopping artists early, only allowing them to do so much, right? And so, art is the feminine expression. They don't want that. They don't want anything feminine under the ruler gods, the male ruler gods. They don't want nothing feminine under that, because that feminine balances out that masculine, and it makes everybody that becomes balanced strive for perfection in self. Not the perfection like building the perfect house outside the self, building the perfect self inside the self. And so when Romulus learns, Remus dies in war. So now they got one male figure, the Roman. Now, when you go to the prophecy, you see that they had the head of gold and shoulders of bronze and the silver and all the way down to the feet of clay and iron, right? And they told you these are the Holy Roman empires. These are the Roman empires, right? The last one is going to be toppled by a single stone hewn from a mountain. Okay, now when you go through the mythology, in order to find out what this is talking about, you got to look for a stone that's hewn from a mountain that is tied to some type of wisdom and war, right? So looking all over the world, you end up in China. You end up with the story of a guy they call Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong, they call him the Monkey King. Now, this is no coincidence because the story of Sun Wukong say he journeyed to the West for wisdom because the Buddha sent him to the West for wisdom. You don't get no further west than this, North America. Now, the story says that the Buddha sent him. So now you got to go to where was the Buddha? Buddha's in Tibet and India. So now you got to go there. Does this story have a correlation, parallel, or attachment in India? Yeah. This is the story of Hanuman. Hanuman is the Monkey King in India who strikes out for wisdom to the West. They got a different name. Okay, so now you got this dude started off that he was sleeping in the mountain. Some lady come along, hew him out the mountain. He fall down out the mountain, and he started to defend the heavens and the earth. As he started to defend the heavens and the earth, they find out that he is unruly, untamable, and he a bad motherfucker. So, excuse the language. So they sent him to go get wisdom because you cannot be a just ruler because wisdom precedes justice, and they know that this is the only one they feared. As it says that Sun Wukong is the only undefeated. And they have all these trickeries and deceptions in order to deceive Sun Wukong. It's the same story as Hanuman. So, my man called Garvey in on the right bump. So in order for Garvey to come in on the right bump, he got to give Du Bois a left bump. But history got to tie them together with a common denominator to tell me they working together in the open using different strategies. It's called a collateral attack in military strategy and in legal terminology. You're doing two different things at the same time, but y'all both are trying to accomplish the same goal. So when you trace Pan-Africanism, it's going to say W.E.B. Du Bois was the founder of Pan-Africanism. But then it's going to tell you another place that Marcus Garvey was the father of Pan-Africanism. Right? Now, they get in the public domain, they are arguing, and in their argument, they are expressing the valid points of the grievances that they seeing from the angle that they working. Right? So when Du Bois write a negative article to left bump Garvey, Garvey write a negative article to left bump back, but within the article, fuck the left bump. It's a secret there in the open. In the open secret was there's a part of it called The War and Soul where Du Bois tell you that they give you an artificial perception of the self in this system using an educational system. And Garvey, in response, tell you that you the most powerful spiritual being, and up you mighty people do what you will. They can't use they conjure to overcome you if you're aware of what they're doing. Right? So when you know the conjure and you read the Marcus Garvey famous whirlwind speech, look for me in the whirlwind, look for me in the cyclone and the elements of the earth. When you know the conjure, you know what he's saying. But when you don't know the conjure, it's just a badass speech. It's just a cold piece of work. But it's another level when you know the conjure. So I was a independent, self-taught conjure man, studying all of the priests till I became a master of master, self-raised master. Right? And I acknowledge all my elders that came before me that gave me the pieces to the puzzle. Right? And I come to them in honor and distinction because I don't take sides with my mother line or my father line. They both better bump fucking straight. Right? Because my mama taught me, honor thy mother and thy father that their days may be long on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
right? So I use that as a value tool for family. This is how we get to understand how to internalize the overall value of family.
Mm-hmm.
By honoring your parents, it gives you favor with your ancestors, and they help you to clean up generational curses that's in your
Mm-hmm.
DNA.
Mm-hmm. So, so we got okay. It's good you started with Garvey. Okay, you started with Garvey, and then specifically, like what is the link between going from like Noble Drew Ali, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and even in now, with somebody like Dr. York? Is there a connection between all of those individuals, or is it?
Okay, so this is what we know.
Mm-hmm.
We know that at one time Elijah Muhammad was a member of the Moorish Science Temple,
Mm-hmm.
and his name was Robert Poole Bey.
Okay.
We know that he then left there and joined up with the Ahmadiyya sect of Muslims and began to learn Islam before he encountered Master Muhammad
Mm-hmm.
in the 1929 year after the Noble Drew Ali died when he
Mm-hmm.
separated.
Yeah.
We know this in his FBI file. He changed his name to Robert Gulen,
Mm-hmm.
and Robert Gulen was